Today on Reese Dixon, we are making chocolate covered herbed caramels. Hi everybody, it's Teresa with ReeseDixon.com. It is the last day of my DIY Christmas gifts, so we need something super fast, but it still has to be fantastic. So I'm going to make some herbed caramel filled chocolates. If you've never made candy before, it can seem really intimidating, but you just have to take it step by step, and it's not at all. So the first thing I'm going to do is make my caramel. I want this to be the consistency of a sauce, so when you bite into the chocolate, it kind of oozes out deliciously. So the first thing I've got here is 4 tablespoons of butter that's melted, and this is where I add my herb flavor. What I've got here is a big sprig of rosemary, and I'm actually just going to toss that in and let that soak for a good little while, put some heat on it to kind of speed that process along. But if you don't want to deal with the actual herbs, you can get oils. Like here I've got a grape orange oil I've used, I've got a chili oil that I'll be making stuff out of, and you just add a couple of drops of that to the butter. They're very highly concentrated, so it doesn't take a lot. And then to the butter, we're going to add a half a cup of half and half and 1 cup of brown sugar. So put that over the heat and whisk and whisk and whisk until it all starts to come together and thicken up, and kind of let it boil up together. So let me get all that going and I'll show you what we do next. I'm letting the caramel cool down. It needs to be not hot enough to melt chocolate because we don't want to make our beautiful chocolate molds and then pour the caramel in only to have it turn into a delicious mess. So that's cooling, and in the meantime I'm going to get my chocolate molds ready. What I've got here is a whole bunch of tempered chocolate. This is a step you can take just to make it beautiful and shiny and the texture wonderful. But a lot of people just do the melting wafers and don't worry about this. But if you want to temper it, you just have to bring the heat high enough to melt it. I happen to have this handy little cheat sheet on my spatula that says, you know, melt it between 113 to 120 degrees, and then you let it come down to about 90, 98, just about body temperature. And then you'll get these beautiful smooth crystals and a nice shiny coating. Okay, so what I'm going to do to speed up this mold process is just pour this directly onto the molds. And I'm not going to worry about the mess because we'll take care of that in a second. Just pouring it right in there. And then I'm just going to take this mold and flip it right back upside down, scrape off the extra with my spatula here, and I just let it all drip back into the bowl. And then what this does is just leave behind a very thin, beautiful coat on the inside of the mold. You don't get this thick bite of chocolate. You don't have to spend forever painting these either. So I'm just going to let that drip right back in, and so then I'll get that beautiful shell. I put my chocolates in the freezer so that it get nice and hard, and then I finished my caramel. See how nice and smooth that is. Once I had all the ingredients cooked together, the sugar and the cream and the butter, and the oil, of course, the flavored oil, I just kept whisking that, and then when it got to the consistency that I wanted, I took it off the heat and finished it with a half a teaspoon of vanilla, and then put it in the fridge. You want this cool enough that you can still pour it, but not so hot that it will melt all your chocolate. So I'm just going to spoon this caramel into these molds and then back in the fridge for it to get nice and cold before we put the chocolate on the top of it, just the same way that we did on the bottom. The caramels had a minute to set up, so now I'm just going to take more of my melted chocolate and pour it right on the top and kind of just give that a smooth over to finish that off. Then it's back in the freezer until they're all done. I'm a bit of a messy chocolatier, so my bottoms aren't pristine, but they're still pretty enough to make such a show-stopping gift. And once they taste what's inside, then nobody will remember what they look like anyway. So I've got some caramel with chili oil, I've got some rosemary caramel, and then setting up in the fridge, I've got some orange caramel and then just some plain. And I used different molds so that I could keep them all straight. So if you have any questions, please be sure and let me know, and I will try to help you out, even if it's the last minute. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any of my big ideas coming up. Happy holidays, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.